The Las Vegas Raiders have closed the book on OTAs and minicamp. Now all eyes turn toward training camp, then the preseason. And before you know it, the regular season kicks off. But not everyone's future is secure. Today, we're diving into 5 players who are dangerously close to being cut. These aren't just fringe guys. Some were draft picks. Others came in with expectations. But with a new regime in charge, led by a new coaching staff, a restructured front office, and a complete shift in philosophy, the Raiders are headed in a different direction. Let's start with one name that stands out immediately. Thayer Munford. Once seen as a potential building block, Munford now finds himself on the edge. He came in as a 7th-round pick and quickly turned heads. In his rookie season, he stepped up at both left and right tackle, proving to be one of the steals of that draft class. But things have changed, and fast. After battling injuries, Munford lost ground. The Raiders invested a 3rd-round pick in DJ Glaze, and the rookie didn't waste time. Glaze stepped in and flat out won the right tackle job. From that moment, Munford's role vanished. Even more telling, he's been moved inside to guard, a sign the coaching staff is searching for any fit that keeps him around. But the reality is, with the current depth, there may not be room. If the Raiders carry 8 linemen, it's hard to see Munford making the cut. 9 is possible, sure, but unlikely. Practice squad? Maybe, but that depends on who clears waivers, and whether the team believes he's still worth developing. At this point, if you're betting on it, the odds say Munford is out. Kolton Miller is locked in. Jackson Powers-Johnson, a guaranteed starter, and the versatility among the other linemen leaves very little space for someone like Munford to squeeze in. The numbers just don't work in his favor anymore. Let's break down the offensive line situation even further, because when you really do the math, Thayer Munford's chances get slimmer by the day. Start with the basics. The Raiders used 2 3rd-round picks on offensive linemen. That alone eats up spots. And in today's NFL, practice squad rules allow teams to stash young players, even protect them from being poached. But that doesn't mean everyone fits. Right now, you've got your 2 starting guards, Alex Cappa and Dylan Parham. Add in Kolton Miller and DJ Glaze, and you're already stacking a deep group. That puts the total at 6 offensive linemen with guaranteed roles. Assuming the team carries 8, which is the norm, that only leaves 2 open slots. And here's where it gets tricky for Munford. The staff is placing a premium on versatility and availability. They want guys who can play both guard and center. And Munford doesn't offer that. While he's taken some emergency reps, there are players more suited for that swing interior role. Right now, Jordan Meredith is running as the 2nd-team center. And then there's Will Putnam, another interior option with positional flexibility. These are the kind of guys coaches love. Plug-and-play depth pieces that keep the system intact if injuries hit. Yes, Munford did step in with the first team when Parham went down. And yes, that guard-tackle flexibility still carries value. But how much? Consider this. Charles Turner was also drafted. Dalton Wagner is still hanging around, and this staff sees potential in him. He's massive, experienced, and heading into year 3, the perfect time to turn a developmental player into a contributor. And that's the point. It's not just about Munford. It's about who else is stepping up. Unless Munford proves without a doubt that he's more reliable than Wagner or more versatile than Meredith, his time in Vegas could be over. Now, there's always the chance he sticks around on the practice squad. But let's be real, if he hits waivers, another team might scoop him up. He's played valuable snaps in this league, and that tape doesn't go unnoticed. Still, when you look at the Raiders' offensive line as it's currently built, with youth, depth, and flexibility in mind, Munford is walking a razor-thin line between the 53-man roster and the cut list. Darrell Munford might be the first name under pressure, but he's far from the only one. Training camp is about to become a battlefield, and for some players, it could be the final chapter in their time with the Raiders. And that's why the preseason matters more than ever. For casual fans, those early quarters are enough, but real fans know where the gold is. It's in those gritty, late-game reps when the backups and long shots take the field. That's where you find out who belongs and who's hanging on by a thread. Plenty of starters in this league were once afterthoughts. Look at Lester Cotton, once buried on the depth chart, now starting in the NFL. Or Andre James, who turned a few quiet preseason reps into a starting center job. That's the kind of evolution this next group needs. Next up, Tommy Eichenberg. A fifth-round pick just a year ago, but make no mistake, he's in danger. Eichenberg was drafted under the old regime. And in the NFL, that matters. A new front office and a new defensive system, led by PeteCarroll, brings a fresh vision, and Eichenberg might not fit it. Let's be honest, he hasn't shown much yet. Linebackers in today's game need more than just solid tackling. They need burst, instincts, range, and so far, Eichenberg has looked like just a depth piece. That's not enough. Yes, linebackers can develop over time. We've seen that. Jermaine Pratt, Elandon Roberts, even Fred Warner, a fourth-rounder who turned into a star. But you can usually tell early if a guy has it. With Eichenberg, that flash hasn't shown up yet. Right now, his biggest value is on special teams. And while that's important, it's also replaceable. Special teams contributors come and go, they're not locked roster spots. And here's the biggest problem for Eichenberg. The linebacker room is loaded. The Raiders added Jermaine Pratt, Elandon Roberts, Devin White, and Jalen Smith this offseason. All veteran pros who bring leadership and playoff experience. That's 4 players ahead of him before the pads even go on. For Eichenberg, the clock is ticking. If he doesn't show something fast, something real, he could be looking for work elsewhere before week 1. It would be a shock if Jermaine Pratt, Elandon Roberts, Devin White, and Jalen Smith didn't all make the final roster. That's 4 locked-in veterans, battle-tested, experienced, and trusted by this new regime. So now the question becomes, how many linebackers can the Raiders realistically keep? They just drafted Cody Lindenberg in the 7th round. And while late-round picks don't always get locked in, releasing him would be risky. In today's NFL, if a team sees upside, they'll scoop a rookie off waivers in a heartbeat. Lindenberg has size, athleticism, and enough tools that someone else could take a shot if the Raiders let him go. That brings the total to 5 linebackers, and we're not even done yet. Amari Gaynor is the wild card. He's been getting noticed, not just by coaches, but by leaders like Max Crosby and Devin White. Those aren't throwaway compliments. They mean something. And when Gaynor hit the field last preseason, he looked like he belonged. Fast, explosive, confident. Frankly, he looked more NFL ready than Tommy Eichenberg, even though Eichenberg was the higher draft pick. That happens. Draft status doesn't always determine who survives. Gaynor's size is a factor too, nearly 6'4", with length and versatility. He can play in space, crash the edge, or drop into coverage. That's a modern linebacker. And here's where roster math gets brutal. If the Raiders keep 6 linebackers, someone's getting left behind. Right now, Eichenberg is on the outside looking in. And when you factor in scheme, it gets even tougher. The Raiders, like most NFL teams, will be in nickel defense the majority of the time. That means only 2 linebackers on the field for most snaps. And traditional designations like strong side or weak side barely matter anymore, especially with all the pre-snap motion in today's game. Defensive flexibility is everything. That's where players like Gaynor and Lindenberg shine. They can stack up in the box or line up on the edge. That dual threat ability gives them a real advantage over someone like Eichenberg, who's more limited to interior duties. Let's call it like it is. The modern linebacker must be positionless, a hybrid who can adjust on the fly. The Raiders clearly value that. And that means Eichenberg's traditional, one-dimensional style could push him off the roster. And just when you thought the depth chart was crowded, here come two more rookies. Jalen Walker and Matt Jones, both newly signed. Long shots? Maybe. But they're part of this new build, and that gives them a fighting chance. So when training camp opens up, it's not just about who looks good. It's about who fits this new identity. And right now, Eichenberg is struggling to check those boxes. Let's shift back to the offensive line, because this next name might surprise some people. Dylan Parham. When you talk about upside, Parham checks all the boxes. Athletic, smart, tough. He has the raw potential to be a starting caliber offensive lineman in this league for the next decade. But here's the problem. Potential only matters if you stay on the field. Parham's development has been slowed by constant position changes and nagging injuries. He played right guard in college. The Raiders moved him to left guard, then back to right guard, and now back to left again. All that shifting can stunt a young lineman's growth. And while he's managed to flash at times, it's hard to build consistency when you're never settled in one spot or healthy enough to stay in rhythm. And that's the concern. JohnSpytek, the Raiders' new general manager, values availability above everything. If you're always injured, you're not dependable. Simple as that. Look at the contrast. The Raiders brought in Alex Cappa, a proven veteran. Yes, he once lost a full year to an ACL tear, but outside of that, the guy's been consistently durable. That matters in the trenches. Meanwhile, Colton Miller, once seen as a cornerstone, has dealt with his own injury setbacks over the past couple of seasons. And while his future is still uncertain under this regime, it's clear that the Raiders are moving toward a different standard: toughness and reliability. That's why Dylan Parham's roster spot isn't guaranteed. Let's say he gets hurt again, even during the preseason. What happens if Thayer Munford steps in at left guard and holds his own? Or if rookies like Caleb Rogers or Charles Turner show they can handle interior duties? The Raiders might decide it's time to move on. And don't forget, Charles Turner is already viewed by some as a long-term answer at tackle. But if the coaching staff wants to ease him into the pro game, left guard could be the perfect trial run, a stepping stone before kicking him outside. So where does that leave Parham? Right now, he's dealing with another injury. He participated in the first day of mandatory minicamp, but by day 2, he was sidelined. And Thayer Munford started taking first-team reps at left guard. That's not a good sign. With Jordan Meredith also showing flexibility between center and guard, the Raiders have options. If Parham can't stay healthy through training camp, there's a very real possibility that the team moves forward without him. It's harsh, but it's the truth. In the NFL, availability isn't just important, it's everything. During minicamp, Jordan Meredith saw some first-team reps at left guard alongside Dylan Parham, which tells us a lot about how this coaching staff views Meredith's value. He offers true guard-center flexibility, and that's exactly the kind of versatility the Raiders are looking for in-depth players. But Meredith isn't alone. Thayer Munford could still kick inside and compete at guard. Caleb Rogers is already projected as a full-time guard. Add in Jared Hufford, a raw but insanely powerful rookie, and suddenly you're looking at a crowded interior group. And that doesn't even include Parham, who's currently injured again. If Hufford's power translates and Rogers continues developing, there's a very real chance Parham gets squeezed out. The competition in camp is going to be brutal. Roster spots will be earned, not given. And now we shift to the fourth player on this list. Domaron Richardson, a fourth-round pick this year, but truthfully, he's already on the bubble. Not because he lacks talent, Richardson has size, athleticism, and the traits that normally get you excited about a defensive back. But the Raiders' secondary room is stacked, especially after a wave of off-season additions. And the message from the front office is clear. They signed Jeremy Chinn, traded for Eric Stokes, and brought in Lonnie Johnson. That's 3 versatile, physical defensive backs with NFL experience, all expected to play meaningful snaps. Stokes is already running with the first team. Johnson has worked in the slot and at safety, and Darnay Holmes has been the go-to nickel corner during sub-packages. That alone puts Richardson behind the curve. Add in your Corian Bennett, who the Raiders are heavily invested in from last year's draft, and that's 4 DBs with defined roles. And they're not done. This offseason, the Raiders brought in 3 undrafted corners: Greedy Vance, Mello Dotson, and John Humphrey, all of whom have flashed in early work and could steal a spot with a strong preseason. So where does that leave Richardson? He's got the frame, nearly 6'3", and the athletic traits you look for in a developmental player. But in a loaded room, traits aren't enough. You have to make plays. You have to stand out. And so far, he hasn't separated himself from the pack. And the truth is, NFL rosters don't wait on potential. The Raiders are building a defensive identity around versatility and speed. Players like Chin, Johnson, and Stokes offer just that. If Richardson can't prove he belongs during training camp, he might not make it to the final 53. It's a numbers game, and right now, those numbers aren't in his favor. Even if they're not starters, the Raiders secondary is loaded with players who will see the field this year. It's a deep, competitive room from top to bottom. Isaiah Pola-Mao and Jeremy Chin bring size and versatility. Both can serve as big nickel defenders, capable of playing safety, slot corner, or even matching up against tight ends. Thomas Harper, another name that's quietly gaining buzz, was a cornerback in college. Don't be shocked if the Raiders slide him back into that role. With how this defensive staff operates, positions are fluid, not fixed. PeteCarroll's system thrives on adaptability. If you can cover, you'll find snaps, regardless of whether you're labeled a safety, a nickel, or a corner. He'll take offensive players and turn them into defenders. He'll take safeties and make them full-time slot defenders. The only thing that matters is performance. And when you watch the film, Domaron Richardson just hasn't shown enough. Yes, he has the frame, nearly 6'3", rangy fast, but the tape doesn't lie. His rookie year was rough. Very rough. And while we all root for young players to grow, this isn't college football. You don't get years to figure it out. You either flash early or get passed up. Compare him to Darian Porter, who was drafted just 1 round later. Porter is already earning first-team reps. He's making plays, showing growth. Richardson, he looked lost more often than not. For a 4th-round pick, that's a big red flag. Could he take a leap in year 2? Sure, but based on what we've seen and who the Raiders have brought in, that leap would have to be massive to keep his spot. And to be blunt, it doesn't look likely. Which brings us to the final names on this list, and it's a surprise twist. 2 running backs. Originally, the idea was to highlight one, Zamir White. But now, there's a real possibility that both Zamir White and Dylan Laub are on the chopping block. Let's start with Zamir. He was given every chance last season. He stepped into the starting role, carried the load, and the results? Disappointing. He ran hard, but vision, burst, and consistency just weren't there. This wasn't a 1-game sample. This was weeks of underwhelming play. And in a league where backs are replaceable, that matters. The truth? He didn't look like a long-term answer. And the Raiders know it. They entered the offseason with a major problem in the backfield. Alexander Mattison was a pending free agent. Sincere McCormick was banged up and unavailable. And Zamir White, despite all the opportunity, just didn't look like the guy. Enter Dylan Laub, a rookie pickup meant to bring explosion and third-down versatility. But even he hasn't shown enough early on to secure his place. Whether it's pass protection or adjusting to NFL speed, he's behind the curve. Bottom line, Chip Kelly saw the problem immediately when he arrived. The running back room had to be overhauled. That process is already underway, and it may leave both Zamir White and Dylan Laub on the outside looking in. The Raiders didn't sit back and hope things would improve in the backfield. They took action. First, they signed veteran Raheem Mostert, a proven zone run specialist who's thrived in this exact type of scheme under Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel. He brings track star speed, big playability, and veteran savvy, all in a body that hasn't absorbed the mileage of a typical NFL back. If nothing else had changed this offseason, Mostert alone would have been the best running back on the roster. That's how thin things were last year. And yet, the Raiders didn't stop there. They went out and drafted Ashton Jeanty, the electric, do-it-all runner from Boise State. Jeanty isn't just a spark plug. He's the future. With Mostert and Jeanty, the Raiders suddenly have a thunder and lightning combo tailor-made for Chip Kelly's wide zone system. But here's the challenge. You can't keep everybody. Right now, 6 running backs are competing for what's likely just 4 roster spots. Behind Jeanty and Mostert, the Raiders still have Sincere McCormick, who quietly showed real juice before his injury. Zamir White, who underwhelmed despite getting every chance to shine. Dylan Laub, a rookie with return game upside. Chris Collier, a former 49er, who's now trying to earn a spot in silver and black. Let's be honest, Zamir White is on the edge. He had the stage last season. He got the carries. And he just didn't deliver. Missed reads, limited burst, and lackluster efficiency all contributed to an opportunity wasted. In contrast, Sincere McCormick has flashed real promise when healthy. He runs with urgency and purpose. And based on pure film, he looks like the better back between the two. Then there's Laub, whose greatest weapon might be his special teams value. He's a potential kick returner, punt returner, and coverage guy. The kind of player who can justify a final roster spot even if he's buried on the RB depth chart. And don't forget Chris Collier. He's a physical runner with some preseason buzz, and if he makes a splash in camp, he could sneak onto the roster as the 4th back. The decision won't be easy. But one thing is certain, the Raiders are no longer desperate at running back, and that puts serious pressure on guys like Zamir White and Dylan Laub. The competition is real, and there's no margin for error. Dylan Laub's best shot at making this team. It's not as a ball carrier, it's as a special teams weapon. He could carve out a role as a gunner, a returner, or that hustle guy flying down the sideline on kick coverage. That's where his value lies. But here's the twist. What if Chris Collier flashes? He's entering his 2nd year, hungry, overlooked, and quietly working. If he starts showing shades of a young Raheem Mostert, it's going to put serious pressure on the rest of the depth chart. Because the truth is, the Raiders can't keep everyone. NFL rosters may list 53 active players, but with practice squad protections and call-ups, teams often manage closer to 55 guys on game day. That means every extra player at one position, like running back, takes a spot away from another. Want to carry 4 tight ends? That might cost you a wide receiver. Want to keep 10 offensive linemen to protect your rookie quarterback? Then maybe you only keep 3 running backs. Right now, tight end looks deep and versatile. Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer are loss. Ian Thomas is a seasoned vet. That's already 3. And then you have Kadri Ismail, a rookie who's turning heads in camp, powerful, athletic, and capable of playing both tight end and fullback. If he proves valuable in goal line and heavy sets, he may force his way onto the roster. That's 4 tight ends. And if the Raiders carry 9, maybe even 10, offensive linemen because of raw rookies like DJ Glaze and developmental players like Dalton Wagner, that tightens the squeeze at running back even more. So don't be surprised if both Zamir White and Dylan Laub get cut. It sounds shocking at first, but when you step back and look at the roster math, it adds up. These decisions won't be personal. They'll be about production, health, versatility. Who can help this team win on Sundays? And who's just a name on the depth chart? So there you have it. 5 Raiders walking a fine line this summer. Dylan Parham, talented but injury-prone. Darian Kinnard-Munford, versatile but out of position. Tommy Eichenberg, a linebacker in a loaded room. Cameron Richardson, big frame, but no production. Zamir White and Dylan Laub, 2 backs, maybe no room. The message is clear. Stay healthy, step up, or step out. Let's see who's still standing when camp breaks. Byron Young was a 3rd-round pick. Alex Leatherwood was a 1st-rounder. Both got cut earlier than anyone expected. So don't assume anyone's safe, not even the names you think are too recent or too valuable to give up on. That's how the NFL works now. It's a league built on what you've done lately, not where you were drafted. And for the Raiders, under a new regime, the past means even less. So, will guys like Zamir White, Dylan Parham, or Cameron Richardson be around by week 1? We're about to find out. Camp is coming. And when it does, reputation won't matter, production will.